for me, I mean, I have studied a philological field, ancient Near Eastern cultures and languages. And of course, I have moved into the field of botany and of medicine. So I had to learn a lot of other things, more or less by my own, in order to be able to collaborate with people from other fields. And it's fascinating, but it's also sometimes frustrating because you do it always on your own. But it has opened up new venues of research and also meeting new people. It's always very nice.
Yes, absolutely. That kind of, I'm not sure how I found it or got into it, but I was always in love with plants and trying to get back to like natural ways of healing. And
Yeah.
then when I realized how much knowledge was left behind that we could be researching, I kind of got into the ancient pharmacology realm.
Yes.
And then, like, that's where I want to stay. I love it there. It's very interesting. It combines almost all of my passions and interests. I love history. I love, yeah, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, I'm dealing since about 30 years with the healthcare system of ancient Mesopotamia. And I started a little bit with therapies that would combine incantations and some rubbing. And then I got to know one of the pioneers in ancient Near Eastern or ancient Mesopotamian medicine. So the German Franz Köcher. And so I learned a lot from him, and I went on with his project on medicinal plants, because then I started looking at cuneiform medical recipes. And you always have lots of names of medicinal plants. Of course, after years and years and years, always seeing these names, you start thinking, and what is it? What plant is it? Did it
Yeah.
help? How did it help? What knowledge did they have some 4,000 years ago about medicinal plants? I mean, it's something you find in all cultures. And so I came to the work I'm doing at present, is trying to identify, taking just a plant name, and to see how far I can go to, or what information is needed to be able to identify it. I always say identify in quotation marks, because it's never really 100% sure.
Right. What would be the process you go about to identify them? Is it just because you're seeing a lot of the same names come up again, and then, or do you have to go into maybe other cultures as well to see how it's shared?
It's a very complex system, and actually, it's not that I invented it. We were a group of four people, another archaeologist and semitist, and one archaeobotanist and one botanist. And so we devised a methodology. So botanist Shahina Gazanfar, the archaeobotanist Mark Nesbitt, and my colleague Ignacio Marquez Rowe, we were studying what do you need. And of course, one has to think, let's put it like this, in my field, which is plain philological, you always go with the word and the word formation. So I'm dealing with the Akkadian language, which belongs to the Semitic family branch. And so whenever there are terms in my field, you deal with other Semitic languages, be it Hebrew, Aramaic, be it Arabic, Ethiopic, or Syriac. And you see whether the same word formation, we always talk of roots, of word roots, they usually have three radicals, whether they appear in the other Semitic languages where you have a clearer knowledge, because some are still spoken nowadays, or most of them. And then, of course, you have a word formation in Akkadian, and then you think, this word formation is used for the same plant in, let's say, in Arabic. And then the idea is that as the word formation is the same, the meaning should be the same. And this is how, in my field, you usually work. You then take into account other information about the use of plants and the cultivation, but this is not always giving you much more. It's very difficult to find corroborative information. So what we did then, the four of us, was to think that, of course, you have to know that names of plants, they change. They change in one culture. In one culture, the same plant can have various names, and there are many plants that can share the same name. So when you just have the name, you cannot be sure whether this name you take from language family A is the same as in language family B. So what do you need? And then we thought, and as I come from medicine, I thought, all right, let's make a profile of all those plants which are used as single plants and remedies, to have an idea how the plant was used, to see whether you could approach more or less an identification. And the other thing is all kinds of information you can get, which is not always easy, whether it was cultivated, the plant, when it was harvested, if it was cultivated, whether it could have been imported, the plant, or let's say how it was prepared, which parts of the plants were being prepared, and all this information we brought together to see what you can do. And then, of course, let's put it like this, the comparison with other Semitic languages gives you an idea of several candidates of plants. And so we looked whether this is true. Does it work or does it not work? Is it the same plant or not? Because of the use. And the second step is then to see whether the use from the plant in, let's say, in family A is the same, of the same plant with the same root in family B. So whether you have a coincidence. And if you have then a coincidence of the uses, it becomes rather likely. Then you have certain ideas of an identification of a plant, and then you can go beyond. You can go to other cultures. And what we thought, it would be very good to know, as we are in antiquity, to see whether the same uses can be found in other cultures of antiquity. And the first thing I was doing then was compare it to ancient Greek texts like Dioscorides. And there I could see that there is really something where you have some very basic medicinal plants in ancient Mesopotamia. They were known already, and they were nearly 1,000 years known to ancient Mesopotamians before Dioscorides wrote his immense book of 5 volumes on medicinal ingredients.
Do you think that Dioscorides was borrowing maybe from this area?
This is a question which haunts me. I would like to be able to show a true connection. I mean, I have published, I think, last year an article with comparing some plant uses of ancient Mesopotamia with plant uses that appear in Dioscorides. They're nearly exactly the same, but they are common plants. So, and you cannot do anything with a plant. So there is still the doubt whether we cannot discover more or less at the same time or at different times without having a connection certain plant uses. Now, there are some things which have made me think that maybe he had some access to the knowledge. It's Dioscorides very seldom prescribes amulets. So you can use plants not only as medicinal ingredient, but of course you can use it also if you hang it around the neck as sort of to expel evil demons or diseases or whatever. So it would be a true magical function. And Dioscorides apparently uses only 3 times an amulet, which is highly unusual. And one of these uses for one plant, which is plantain, greater plantain or ribwort, it's a very, very common plant. You find it in any culture. In ancient Mesopotamia, this plant, the root of the plant, was used as amulet. and Dioscorides also uses the same plant as amulet for the same causes, for dog bites and for some skin sores, which cannot be a coincidence. This only one example made me think that maybe he had access to the knowledge, but of course I would like to have it sure, to make sure how it could have reached him. You always can speculate, and there are many hypotheses. You have, of course, commercial trade. We know that already in ancient times physicians were traveling around. We know that Herodotus went to Babylon. So there have been many exchanges possible. But of course, you always would like to have it in a written form to say, this is my fact.
This is
and this is what we don't have at present.
And maybe it could be through the spirituality, the divination that the cultures kind of share between ancient Greek and Babylonian gods. A lot of times they are relating these plants to gods, and maybe that can transfer over. I'm not, positive.
Yeah, it might be that you have associated with some gods, or you see a cult where you have, let's say, sacrifices, or you identify deities with plants that but I think it's difficult. I think that the religious aspect you might borrow, but in a different way. So we have, for example, just to tell you, we have some names of gods, ancient Mesopotamian gods, which appear then in later time in magic bowls written in Aramaic, and there the names of the gods have turned into the names of demons. So it's not actually the same. It's difficult to go with the religion. You have some aspects and you have some echoes, but it's different. It's adapted to the customs of the other culture.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think as well, when you get into the religious aspect, that tends to be an area a lot of people don't want the evidence really coming from?
Yeah, but I would say, at least coming from ancient Mesopotamia, you have divination, which is a different, let's say, branch of inquiry. So you have the practice of divination, and of course there are some divinatory practices you also have in other cultures. But let's put it like this: how you link a certain ominous feature with its outcome, this is a bit different. So there you cannot, you will probably the practice, which is similar, but of course the way how you link the meaning with what you see, this is different.
Right. And so when you got into this training in Assyriology, this was in the 90s, right? In the 2000s?
Late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So your early works, were you working, what time did you get to the tablets in Nineveh, or the Nineveh corpus?
Actually, already with my PhD thesis, which was on physiognomic omens, which is divination. So it's the forecast from the features of the body, not only of the face, which you usually have, but the whole body, what it means to about the person. What does it say about the destiny of a person? And so I went to the British Museum, which houses one of the greatest cuneiform tablet collections we have, and especially tablets from Nineveh, from Assurbanipal's great libraries. And so I went and stayed there 1 year to see whether I could identify more previously unknown text fragments, and copy and collate tablets that had been formerly already published. And so that was my first contact with cuneiform, working really with cuneiform tablets. Nevertheless, you have to think that, of course, I studied at the Freie Universität, Free University of Berlin. When the wall had come down, I went very regularly to the museum in the formerly eastern part of Berlin, the Pergamon Museum. I was, I think, the first student who made there a practicum of 3 months in the tablet collection. So at a very early stage, I got acquainted with cuneiform tablets, the different shapes, the different scripts, the different genres, just because of fascination for the material and actually for the whole culture you have then in your hands.
What was the most difficult text that you had to translate?
There are various texts that were very difficult to translate. I think one of the most difficult one I had actually with my PhD thesis. You have sometimes in cuneiform sort of cryptographic writings where you use cuneiform signs with a very rare reading. You have usually, there are some about 600 cuneiform signs, and some of these cuneiform signs can have different readings. And some have readings which you would never expect. And if you have a cuneiform text which has never been dealt with, you decipher sign for sign. You try to read it and you try to recognize words. And if the reading of the signs is common, you can get to words rather easily. The problem is when the cuneiform signs use readings which are rare, and then you have all of a sudden 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 cuneiform signs with very rare readings where you don't know what combination can I choose. And this was for me highly, highly difficult. That was one because of the reading exercise. Then, of course, there are also very difficult texts when you try to decipher a cuneiform tablet. Not always are they pretty well preserved. So due to the course of time, of course, the surface is erased, and sometimes the script is very tiny, and this makes it also very, very difficult. And I had, in the last years in the Berlin Museum, a tablet where the script is just 1 millimeter high. Of course, and there with a magnifying glass, it's extremely difficult to see it. You can take a photograph and you can enlarge it. It's all very fine, but of course, once you have a 3-dimensional object, it's better you move it because then you see a different kind. The light enters in a different angle, and you see the sign better. So that's because of the reading exercise and the decipherment, extremely difficult. And then I have to say also medical texts, they are difficult. They are difficult because they use sometimes a sort of technical language where you think, oh, what's going on there? And so it's a problem of vocabulary that you do not really know the words which appear in the dictionaries. Are they really getting to the point of what is meant in these texts? So that's a different kind of difficulty you can meet, or I have met.
Yeah. Was there any moment when you were translating, like you said, you find these rare, recipes or plants maybe, that you knew you had something that was like extraordinary, or that linked something together?
Quite often. I mean,
Quite
one of
often.
the, yeah. No, it's of course always when you have something no one has ever dealt with. It's this kind of, yeah, it's a challenge. And of course, when once you can read something and you translate it for the first time, it's also satisfying because it's a lot of effort you have. And then it's like discovering a secret and to make it open. It sounds a
Yes.
bit strange,
Yeah.
but it's actually one of the nicest aspects of the work, huh? Is this constant challenge you have. You have to think, to consider, can also be frustrating, this challenge. Once, because
Yes.
it's not always the case that you really can figure out what is written, how it is translated, and whether your interpretation is really sure.
Right. Are they sometimes writing in kind of like a poetic form, like what was it, Nicander, I believe? Magical spells maybe?
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. I mean, there are different ways of writing cuneiform and of structuring cuneiform, and sometimes you see from the tablet what kind of text it is, whether it is a poetic one or whether it is literary text, whether it's simply a list, a shopping list, or whether it is a law court. I mean, this you can see. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
whether
didn't.
I understood your question well.
Well, I was saying, do they hide recipes in like
Ah,
poems? Yes, that's what I was saying.
they hide recipes. They don't really hide recipes, but what you can find from time to time is an indication at the end of a text that the initiated one only should show it to another initiated one. So it's this idea that you keep more or less the knowledge for yourself.
Yes.
This is different from what you say, but that they really hide it. I
Well,
think
I
this
know.
is,
I feel like in the Greek more so, they. I feel like they were talking about certain plants that you can use. Maybe if you're in a cult, right? A lot of these cults use certain languages that would
yeah.
resemble gods or something to plants, certain
Ah,
recipes.
now I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, you have the phenomenon which has been discussed rather recently that some plant names have very strange names. So they are plants, but they receive what very aptly has been termed perplexing names. So you have, for example, some plants, you have suddenly, it's called the tail of a mongoose. And so you don't really know what they are. So I know that my former mentor meant that they are code names, they are secret names because you want to keep your knowledge. But there have been many scholars who have said, no, they are not secret names. I think one has to think of plant names we use nowadays, like dragon's blood. This is not a secret name, it's a popular name. So very often some of these funny names are simply common popular names or making fun of some aspect of the plant. For example, this tail of a mongoose refers to a plant which, together with botanists, we have identified as licorice. And of course, the plant itself has a very strange root. With some imagination, you can think, yeah, that might be an association with a mongoose tail because they really have something in common. But this you cannot say with all these strange names. But I think it might be a mixture. So there might be nicknames. There are some texts I had figured out which is very strange and it hasn't been really explained. So many of these strange names or nicknames you can find in recipes for abortion or which have to do with the healthcare system of women, which might point to the fact that because they were effective, they got different names, or simply the people who made these treatments originally came from a special argot, and so they used it. So you don't know. So there is indeed this question: is it really a coded name or not? It can be, but it needn't be.
Okay, all right. And what got you to into starting? Like, what was your moment you realized that a lot of these practitioners were a lot more sophisticated than we had previously believed? I know that's where your research really
Yeah,
comes through.
yeah. It's a very nice aspect of the work because you always think you go back in time, you belittle a little bit the knowledge and the possibilities of people before technology. But of course, they had an immense experience, an immense capacity of observation. They were calculating even the length of the lunar year to, I think, different to nowadays is some nanoseconds. So Yeah, so you see, they were really spirited researchers, if you would like to say it like this. And it's what I saw is that you really have to take all these texts very serious. You have to take it as really the output of erudite people. There's always a mixture that you have some humbug things, but of course, I think it's the respect you should have for culture which has lived without electricity.
So about these practitioners, about these healers, if you were to walk into a practitioner's hut back, back in ancient Babylon, what would it be like? What do you think the first thing the healer would do?
I don't know whether I would go to the healer or the healer would go to me in order to earn his living, huh? to begin with. He would probably first check what, if the healer comes to me, let's say I'm sick and I need someone to look what has happened to me because I don't know, my family doesn't know, and people who are a little bit more acquainted with some medical stuff do not know either, then I would call a physician. If I would belong to the elite society, and I would be able to afford it, then what the physician would do, the physician would go and would approach my house and would observe first anything that would happen on his way to the patient, because this we know, because we have a companion, a divinatory companion of prognostic, diagnostic omens, and the first chapters are about what a physician sees when he is on his way to the patient's house. So anything which that could give him a clue about the nature of the disease or about the life expectancy of his patient. So that he would do first. Then he would, of course, enter, and then he would start with his examination, which would be probably slapping the cheek a bit. You would probably have to show your tongue. The pulse he probably wouldn't take, but he would probably start smelling. He would ask for the color of your urine. He would probably ask the family members whether there were some derangements. Then he would probably also ask whether you followed all the religious customs and all the prayers and all the sacrifices, because he would need to find out the reason of the disease. And so then he would simply check the coloration or discoloration of body parts. He would check how you would react when he would talk to you. And then he would come to his diagnosis and would probably prescribe or mix something and give it to you. But I wouldn't like to be in the position of an ancient Mesopotamian patient, because the anatomical knowledge was probably not as well developed as ours.
Were they kind of using, was this like related to like the four humor system,
No, I mean, it seems as if you would have sort of precursor, but this is not very sure. So it might be that you can classify diseases according to, there are some diseases which seem to be cold and humid, and some others which are hot and dry. But it's a late development in Hellenistic times, when you would expect it more or less. And there are some ideas that you have the black bile, but it's very, very tricky. So you don't have it developed. You might have some ideas that there's some idea about humors as you have it in Greek medicine, but I wouldn't say no.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I know like observing the colors of your urine and things, these were very common, but also they were looking for a lot more signs, right? This is a lot more signs, and it would be related to, I'm certain, a demon almost. If you were sick, a disease was related.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
it would be, it's a different line of inquiry. It's about then the personal life, how you live. Did you venerate the gods? Did you commit a taboo? Or had you been in touch with a cursed person? All this had to be figured out, because all this could result into a disease. But there are also some texts where you see that they had a certain understanding that you could catch a cold because of bad weather, getting too cold, or because of fatigue. So it's a strange mixture.
So if you were to open the practitioner's medicine cabinet, what do you think he would have? What kind of herbs and plants would he have in there at all times, maybe? Or maybe some fun ones.
And probably he would have some, I mean, there are some plants which are used with a very high frequency. So he would probably have, it depends whether he would know what expects him. So he would probably always have something to treat some skin sores, because skin diseases are the diseases for which most medicinal plants are used. So he would have something like, he could have some ribwort. This you find anywhere in the streets. So in case there would be a kind of wound where he would use the leaves, or have the leaves chewed, or minced, which he would then put on open sores, that he could have. He probably would also take along some kind of narcotic in case of pain. So there are some plants that have this kind of effect. And then probably also would have some plant that would cause vomiting, because this is one of the things where you get rid of the idea of getting rid of a disease. That you either you give medications that cause diarrhea or emetic reactions, that he probably would also do, because it's rather quick, it's very easy. So the patient sees then also a reaction, then an immediate reaction, which I believe might also be very, very important for the recovery, that the patient gets the feeling that something is changing in his body. Anyway, I mean, we always have to keep in mind what they treat are the symptoms. So they don't really treat the diseases.
Right. What was the strangest treatment that you think you've encountered?
There is one text which is very, very funny. It has to do with some, I think it was with some intestinal problems, where the patient has to be taken and he has to, like in a, he has to be moved between two people, which is a very strange thing. But I read that this is apparently a medical practice to help the body. But I've never read that before. It is very strange, very strange.
Um, so why do you think that Mesopotamian medicine was so overlooked then, as far as like being compared to Greek medicine?
Uh, I mean, you have to think that the field of ancient Near Eastern cultures and languages, it's a very small field. We have very few people, less even who are dedicated to what is ancient medicine, and it's very difficult to read. It's a relatively modern field, has nothing to do with Greek medicine, and which I think is probably one of the main problems. It is not very, or it has never been very attractive to historians of medicine, because many texts include incantations and some kind of rituals, so that you get the impression, oh, it's all magic. And of course, there is this mixture, but I think one can see that there are different strands going together in a healing therapy. But I think basically it's young. Then it took many years until you got the first translations. I mean, there are now many translations of medical recipes available, which has nothing to do with the situation 100 years ago. But of course, sometimes these translations, because it's the first translation of a text, it's very close to the wording of a recipe. And I know from experience by talking to people from other fields that the translations we as urologists produce are sometimes only to be understood by other urologists, but not by people outside, because they are sometimes very literal. Sometimes you really don't know what does the text say, and this is another problem. So it's how my field, how we have presented the information is. I think all this together, but I believe that will change in the next years.
Yes. Well,
then, of course, there is also something else. You do not have any abstract writings in ancient Mesopotamia. You don't have theories. And this, of course, doesn't make it very attractive for a historian of medicine either. So you have cases. You have lots of cases. It's very casuistic. There are still thousands and thousands of tablets which have never been translated. They are kept in the museums, and it's a very slow work deciphering these texts. And it has become, I think, people nowadays, they don't like to spend hours and hours and hours in museums to try to decipher texts, because you would like to do something with the text, you would like to interpret them. But the first task of deciphering and identifying consumes a lot of time and energy. And these many people cannot do it anymore nowadays, because also careers in university have changed.
well, how far do you think we would be away from an AI scan being able to decipher these texts?
There are several projects who have started. I don't know. I mean, it's highly interesting what they can do, especially when they make 3D scans. This is fantastic because, as I say, because the surface is very often erased with these 3D scans. Sometimes you can see a bit more what you cannot see anymore on the surface. With this kind of scans, you can see the image of the sign. I don't know. The problem is, of course, that you have, every period has a different, slightly different style of writing. Scribes always have a different hand. Some
Yes.
try really but it's a rather exceptional. The Assurbanipal's library, so the scriptorium he had, it's very difficult to distinguish who has written what kind of tablet, because they are like a normative writing system. But you don't have that. Then of course you have differences between Babylonian and Assyrian writing. So you would need first to feed IA with all these kind of variants of writing in order to be able to decipher. But yeah, maybe it will, maybe 10 years, 5 years, I don't know, very
Maybe.
difficult to say. I mean, it's so
Maybe. Yeah.
fast, the development.
Yes, very. Do you want to go to some of these texts? Can I pull up one that you sent me?
Yeah, if you want to, just to have an idea how a cuneiform tablet looks like.
Yes.
If you want to take the first one, it's a link. It's one of, to my view, one of the best projects we have in the field. It's
Is this the first one? I
yeah,
believe
it's the
so.
first one.
Yes.
You can click on the image, then you get it bigger.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. So there you see a typical medical cuneiform tablet from Assurbanipal's library, with 2 columns on the obverse, 2 columns on the reverse. You see how it is built. There's one flat side and one convex side. And you see also that it's not well preserved. And scholars, many archaeologists and the curators of the British Museum, over the years, they have put together these little fragments to one tablet.
And now, how would you read this tablet? What are we looking at if you were to start to decipher?
Oh,
Is it right to left to right, or
they write like we do. They write from the left to the right. So I would start with the upper left edge, which would be the first line of the text. Before I start reading it, I have a look at the tablet. So I would see, this is a tablet with two columns. You see the column is divided by two lines, two vertical lines, and then I see that there are sections. So this gives me an idea, so it is structured. Let's see how is it structured. And would simply start with the first line, which probably would tell me if you have the transliteration just there in the box beside. I would go on and see and read what is stated there. So if a man, and then comes the body part, which hurts him. So it's I can see from the first part of the text, this is a medical text, and it gives me the description of a symptom. And so I would go on reading these texts. Let's have a look.
that's probably very hard for you to see. So,
No, it says it. So if the upper part of the belly hurts him, and then at the end you have, he is sick, this man, Nabi, which is Amelushu, Gik, Maut, he is sick of Kerbeno, this is the name of a disease. And then you have in the second line a list of ingredients, where we have then the recipe. It has the first one is garlic, then you have probably leek, then you have meat parts, then you have wine, and this is what you use to heal him.
wow. And that, like, I look at that, it must be so difficult and take a long time to learn how to read that.
You are trained. I mean, you read it, you learn it when you study it, and let's put it like this, I think there are hardly any astrologist who would be able to read such texts like a newspaper. It always depends. I mean, you don't see it, but these kind of medical texts, they use a combination of logographic writings and of syllabic writings. So whenever you have first to recognize what is a logogram, and then of course this logogram is used for Sumerian, the other great cuneiform language. So they have a combined writing system, which makes it difficult because you have to see whether the sign I have is has a logographic meaning, or it has a syllabical meaning.
Now, when you say logographic, is that like a hieroglyphic almost? Is that like
Yeah, they work in
are
the
you
same
like
way.
picturing the
Yeah,
word? Okay.
it's the same way. So they have this combined. It comes from it's how cuneiform writing has developed. So cuneiform writing was invented, or it was invented for the Sumerian language, and the Sumerian language, they used rather word signs, logograms, to express. And then later they would use some of the word signs, reading them and turn these word signs into syllables. So where you could use, for example, the sign for head, which is sak.
Okay.
You could use the reading sak also to make a word like saku.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
So I don't know whether I explain it too well. So and this kind of combination is inherited by in the Akkadian writing system, and there are ways of writing, and especially when it is let's say a scholarly writing, where they have this awful mixture of logographic meanings, or logographic, which refers to a word, or the same sign which then can refer to a syllable, which makes it difficult with the decipherment. There are other text genres that only use syllables. For example, letters. People at a certain moment in time second millennium. So many people could write, and they would use a reduced repertoire of cuneiform signs, and they would basically use syllabic signs. But once you become more erudite, you want to boast also a bit of your knowledge, and so then you
Yeah.
would make a mixture.
This is the other tablet that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
had shared with me.
yeah.
Let's
So
see.
this is a bit of a different tablet, huh? It's basically, we have a look at it, you see that there are columns, several columns. Actually, if you make it bigger, you can see that it should have
One, two,
yeah,
three.
four,
Okay.
five, six,
Four,
huh?
five, six. Right.
Yeah. So three columns belong to one part. So it's six columns, but the six columns are divided into two halves. So what you have here is one of a list how of medicinal ingredients, medicinal plants, so, used as simple ingredients. And what you have in the very first column, you have the name of the plant. And then in the second column, you have the indication for which disease the plant is used. And in the third column, you have a very short indication how it is being prepared. And this kind of text, they were used by physicians it's like a vademecum text. So you could look up, a man suffers from this and this disease. So then I have this variety of plants which I can use to treat this disease.
So this is like almost an encyclopedia.
Yeah, yep,
Right.
yep, yeah,
So
yeah.
they were collecting this knowledge. They were definitely building a system of medicine for sure.
Yes, yes, for sure. I mean, I didn't mention, but all these medical recipes, they are collected into a handbook, which has a structure. So it starts from head to toe with recipes. And of course, they go with the body parts affected, these medical texts. So you really have a huge handbook. And these texts are meant for checking. This we know of some letter correspondence. But of course, they are also meant to collect all the knowledge, all the medical knowledge of the time.
And so what kind of things did they understand as far as like did they understand um, you know, even mental stress on the body?
Yes, of course, you have to think that they were very, very careful observers. And so mental stress, they would recognize. I mean, you have many kinds of afflictions that concern the mental illness, and they recognized it. So they would see whether you would fear things. I mean, they would also have, of course, a kind of interview with the patient and probably ask the family members. But yes, they recognized if a person was depressed or how to read the signs in the body.
Yeah, and even with diet being very it was that very crucial to them as well, like the health of
There were
diet.
some things you shouldn't eat, so there are some food stuff they recommend not to eat at certain moments, at certain stages of an illness. Yes, but you wouldn't have, let's put it like this, you don't have this theory. As you don't have a theory of the four humours, you do not have a dietary theory either.
Ah, I see.
I think this you would find in other cultures, huh?
Yeah.
But not in the ancient Mesopotamian one. You would have it for ancient India, for example. You also have ancient Greek, but you do not have really a system of dietary recommendations as you would find it in comparable ancient cultures.
Do you know what might be like the most medically effective treatment that was found in one of these tablets that you can relate to, pharmacology today that we would recognize?
Yeah, I mean, there are many plants with antiseptic effect, and this they knew. So, for example, you would treat pus in the ear, you would treat with pomegranate juice. Pomegranate juice is antiseptic. And so that they did, so they must have had a certain knowledge by experience. So there are many effects of plants we use still nowadays. As I told you, this ripwort, you can still use it nowadays. I mean, I tried it once to see how it works. Huh? If you're in the garden, you work there. I have some roses, and you get pricked. I take some of the plant and rub it, and you stop bleeding. So there are many of the plants they used are still used in traditional medicine, also nowadays.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's great. Where does your work look like in the future? What are you working on currently?
The second tablet I showed you, I'm presently dealing with the last. No, not this one. The other one with the medicinal plants. I'm preparing the edition of these texts, and I have made the last step, and I hope to publish it between this year and the next year. So that is the most current project I'm dealing with in the plant world. And then, of course, I have my own research project, which has brought me into other lines of research, which is comparing the ancient Mesopotamian medical knowledge with biblical knowledge of plants, or let's say with the knowledge in biblical times.
Where could we find you today? What if someone wanted to look you up? Where could they find you?
Oh, they can find me in Madrid, where I'm working at the CSIC. It's a research organization. It's like you have in France the CNRS, or in Italy the CNR. And there's where I have my office, and where I have my books, and where I have my desk and my computer. But I'm at present, because of my research project, not in Madrid, but in Barcelona and in Montserrat, which is an abbey where I'm dealing with biblical plants.
Well, Barbara, thank you very much for doing this interview with me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Yes, I hope it was good. I look forward to you translating these texts and see what comes out in the future.
Yeah, wish me luck, because it's not easy.
I wish you all the luck.